Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, in the wake of multiple deadly mass shootings, local law enforcement are out in full force ensuring community safety.
Sometimes members of the community may not feel comfortable just walking up to a police officer, but this is the event to do so.
A live report on National Night Out as the country continues its push against gun violence. Plus, saving Del Mar's shoreline, how a newly approved permit will provide much-needed improvements to the Bluffs and our North County rail system. And an investigation into a veteran's death finds it could have been prevented. Why the San Diego VA hospital is being blamed. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 6th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Priya Sridhar. A time to heal, a time to talk. Cities all across America are still coming to grips with the mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. Here in San Diego County, several communities are coming together right now seeking solutions to make cities safer. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is live in Chula Vista, where police are reaching out to families as part of National Night Out. Matt?
Yeah, Priya, hundreds of people are expected to attend this annual event tonight. This year, though, the food, fun, and games are met with a serious message of safety. This is a border town right here in Chula Vista that has a large Latino population, like El Paso, Texas, where a gunman killed 22 people, an attack that's believed to have targeted Hispanic people. Chula Vista police say they understand the community might be on edge following the shooting. They say this annual night out is a chance to meet officers, so people might feel more comfortable to report suspicious activity that could stop another mass shooting from happening.
A lot of times, members of the community may not feel comfortable just walking up to a police officer, but this is the event to do so and go, you know what? I saw something disturbing online and I didn't like what it said, and I think you should be aware of it. Or just for example, maybe they went to school with somebody and that person just seemed to maybe just a little bit off or did some disturbing things and it wasn't that long ago. Those are the type of things we want the community to tell us about.
Yeah, in Chula Vista PD, they're going to be talking to residents about the mass shootings that had happened in Texas and Ohio, just trying to tell people what they might do in the event of a mass shooting. But this annual event is mainly about people just connecting with law enforcement, getting to know their names, reaching out to them so that they might want to talk to them in the future. This is just one of a number of events happening around the county. We'll show you some of the stuff. There's tons of stuff going on here. This is one of the SWAT team's Bearcats. It's one of those huge vehicles that you only see if something's going wrong. And over here we have the pet disaster relief. And then down here a little bit more is something really fun. People have a chance to dunk an officer. That's going on. They have them dressed up in sort of a jail uniform down here, and you can dunk a Chula Vista police officer. This fun and family-friendly event is going on until 8 p.m. with the goal of connecting people to law enforcement. So if you have some time, come on down here and check it out. In Chula Vista, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks so much, Matt, for that report. Well, forever connected by tragedy, people in El Paso and Dayton are making sure their loved ones and their communities aren't forgotten. We take a look at some of their stories.
We tried to save him. I just want his parents to know that we did everything possible to save him.
Stories of heroism.
To deter him, I started just chunking bottles. I just started throwing random bottles at him. And I'm not a baseball player, so one went this way and one went that way. And then one went right towards him, and then that's when he saw me and just started, and I ducked.
And survival from two cities that suffered mass shootings in just 13 hours. Some survivors even reuniting.
There she is.
There she is.
The two communities that lost more than 30 lives and saw many more injured are honoring the victims. Sixth grader Ruben Martinez has started the hashtag El Paso Challenge, encouraging each person in the city to do 22 acts of kindness. In Dayton, Ohio, businesses in the popular Oregon district reopened Monday, including the bar that was targeted by the gunman. While organizers of a gun show that was scheduled for the coming weekend announced they would cancel the event out of respect. And in El Paso, one funeral home has announced they will provide free funeral services for the families of those that lost a loved one. The mass shooting in El Paso also touched a member of the San Diego community. A San Diego State University basketball player lost a cousin in the killing spree. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson spoke with her.
And then I hear boom, 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 boom.
People were running from inside the mall to Dillard's, and they were just screaming to get out.
Inside, shoppers scrambled to get away from the gunman. SDSU senior Monique Terry was in El Paso running errands with her mom when she got text messages about the shooting at the Walmart. Her cousin Jordan Anchando and her cousin's husband Andre died, shielding their 2-month-old son from the hail of bullets. The baby survived.
My cousin had just dropped off her 5-year-old daughter for cheerleading, and she went to go get school supplies at Walmart that same day for her oldest daughter. And it doesn't make sense for her life to be stripped away from her when she was only getting school supplies because of where she was at and who she was around and where she lives. It's just confusing, and it's not fair.
The SDSU athlete is thankful she's able to be with her family in El Paso at this difficult time. Relatives are trying to map out the future for her cousin's orphaned children.
It's tough to talk about, but it's not okay at all. She was only 24 and starting her life with 3 babies, so life isn't fair, but this is one main thing that's not fair for anybody.
Terry says she's trying to understand the senseless deaths, and she's consoling Jordan's mother. 22 people died in the El Paso shooting. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Work to stabilize the coastal bluffs through Del Mar is moving forward following a vote by the city council there. Members approved an encroachment permit allowing Sandag to continue work on a 1.5-mile stretch of coastline. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live in Del Mar with details on the work to be done. John?
Priya, I'm at the end of 11th Street, a good place to see where work has already been done, and a big reason to continue that work. That reason is the train tracks right here, which, as you can see in this stretch, are within several feet of the edge of the bluff. Now, you can see some of the work that has already been done. If you take a look down there at those circles in the dirt, those are actually the tops of 65-foot tall pilings that stabilize the bluffs. Last night's vote by the Del Mar City Council allows Sandag to come onto city property to do drainage improvements. Drainage, not sea rise or high tides, poses the biggest threat to the bluffs. The $3 million project will pay for that drainage work along a 1.5-mile stretch through Del Mar. It is phase 4 of a bluff stabilization project that began 18 years ago, and it's overdue.
The walls to the drainage structures and the drainage outlets have fallen down, and they are decades and decades old. And so we're going to be repairing those, repairing some of the old retaining walls and sea walls, and just keeping what we got out there in good shape.
Work on this project is scheduled to begin sometime in late September. Live in Del Mar, John Carroll, KPBS News.
And John, I understand Sandag is looking at a couple of big proposals down the road to deal with the stability of the train tracks along the coast. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, a couple of very big proposals, Priya, when it comes to money at least. The first one envisions building a trench in which the tracks would go. Jen Linthicum told me today that would be a stabilizing force in and of itself between the tracks and the bluffs. The other, much more expensive proposal they're looking at is building a tunnel, which would be located inland from here. That project is estimated to cost $4.5 billion, but eventually something will have to be done about the train tracks, Priya.
John Carroll reporting. Thanks so much for that story. In a controversial move, San Diego City Council approves a 400,000 square foot office campus in Torrey Highlands. The commercial development has sparked debate for months over its location. It will be built in an undeveloped 11-acre lot near the Del Mar Mesa Preserve. Opposition groups say an industrial development is too close to the natural preserve, which is home to threatened plants and animals. Supporters say the campus will add more than 2,000 jobs. Last night, the project passed 6-3. The new office space will include 3 office buildings, a cafe, fitness center, and a 5-story parking lot. A federal investigation into the death of a veteran at the San Diego VA hospital shows staff failed to follow rules that might have prevented the man's death. iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano explains what was uncovered.
A 68-year-old quadriplegic veteran died last summer at the San Diego VA Medical Center when a problem occurred with his ventilator, a device that helped him breathe. A report released last week by the VA Office of Inspector General said hospital employees had not been closely watching the patient, even though they had seen his equipment malfunction before. Staff never reported that safety problem, which was required by hospital policy. Plus, a respiratory therapist had turned down the volume on the patient's emergency alarm because it had been going off unnecessarily. That alarm would have alerted staff when the man's ventilator stopped working. Suzanne Gordon, who has been writing about healthcare in America for 35 years, says the report highlighted significant problems at the hospital.
It was a tragic event. You know, these kinds of things happen in large healthcare systems. It's a terrible thing. You want to avoid that from happening, and you also want definitely to avoid it from happening in the future.
After the veteran's death, the VA hospital trained its staff and began using new equipment. The report called the hospital's response prompt and appropriate. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano.
And iNewsSource is an independent nonprofit partner of KPBS. The head of the Navy will be the final word on the fate of SEAL Eddie Gallagher. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the Chief of Naval Operations Office will decide whether to uphold Gallagher's conviction.
In July, a military jury in San Diego found Gallagher guilty of only a single charge of posing with a corpse on the battlefield. He was given the maximum 4-month sentence and reduced in rank. The Navy has 120 days to confirm whether to uphold that sentence. His case was in the hands of Rear Admiral Betty Bovalar, the head of Navy Region Southwest. But Chief of Naval Operations Admiral John Richardson announced he is taking over the case. The news comes after Richardson dismissed the charges against Gallagher's commander. Lieutenant Jake Portier then ordered prosecutors to take no action against a key witness who said on the stand that he, not Gallagher, killed the prisoner in their custody in 2017. When their SEAL team was in Iraq. Though Gallagher has served enough time in the brig to cover a 4-month sentence, he is set to retire from the Navy. Any reduction in rank could count against his military pension. The CNL has also given 60 days for a Navy-wide review of the last 4 years of the Judge Advocate General's office. All of this comes after the president intervened several times on Twitter in support of Gallagher and his legal team. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The story of one man in a Coronado nursing home is receiving national attention. Room 20 is a podcast focusing on the life of a patient called 66 Garage. Kept on life support for more than 15 years, his identity remains a mystery. KPBS anchor Ebony Monet spoke to Joanne Ferrion about her investigation and the podcast.
We're joined now by Room 20 podcast host Joanne Ferrion. Welcome.
Thank you.
So without revealing too much, how would you describe Room 20?
Well, it starts off, I guess, as a mystery about who this man is, a man who's been kept alive in a San Diego nursing home. At the time where you enter the story, it's about 15 years that he's lived there. And he's a John Doe. They don't know his true identity, but he's been called 66 Garage. I can tell you now, without ruining anything in the podcast, that it's believed that he got this name because he was in a crash and the van he was driving was taken to a place called 666 Garage. So you know that in the beginning of the podcast, right? I explained that. But what the actual story is about is sort of, it starts at the moment, actually, that I quit my job. And I set out on this sort of journey that starts out as an effort to find out who he is, and it becomes something very different.
And starting there, can we talk about your background as an investigative journalist and how that actually brought you to this mystery?
Yeah. So the one thing you learn in episode 1 of the podcast, I have a personal connection to this story that I finally reveal. And again, it's not giving away too much, but it sort of goes back to the death of my mother. And as a journalist, I become somewhat obsessed about sort of understanding this moment of dying and end of life. And I start reporting on these issues. In fact, when I was here at KPBS, I spent a year reporting on hospice care with iNewsSource and with KPBS. I spent another year with iNewsSource reporting on people kept alive in what are pejoratively known as vent farms, these nursing home units where people are kept on life support, more than 4,000 of them in the state of California. That led me to, there's this guy, right, who's been living this way. So what happens is the podcast basically places you into this man's room 2 weeks after I leave the newsroom.
And what about his story and what was initially told to you just drew you to dig further?
Well, again, without revealing some of it, I think the personal connection had a lot to do with it, with relation to a decision I had made about my own mother's life and death. And that kind of led me to this kind of reporting. I think, too, while I was reporting on this man, while I was still employed, I was told he was in a vegetative state. And one day, while I was in the room with the nursing home director discussing this story, he smiled at me. And I mean, I wrote about that smile too. And it stuck with me for a lot of reasons, again, that are revealed in the podcast.
And how did this investigation of sorts differ from previous investigations as a journalist?
You know, I stopped being a journalist, and I sort of am pretty transparent about that, right? We all think as journalists, first of all, I've never believed in objectivity. We all come with our own biases, right? Depending on how you grew up and where you grew up and all those sorts of things. So I've never bought into that. However, I think there are a lot of things that we believe as journalists, which is you don't, your sources, the people that are in your stories, you keep this distance from, right? You don't become connected to them in any way. That all changed. And again, episode 1, I mean, I'm going to tell you now, I tell the listener, it's like, you know what? I lose my objectivity. I absolutely do. I decide that I have to be more than a reporter, and whatever that means, because at the end of the day, this is really a story about like a man lost his humanity. That's what this story is about, how he had lost his humanity the minute he crossed the Mexico-U.S. border. And so it's a story about what it means, I think, to be a person. It's a story about consciousness and how, and it's about connection, personal connection.
And now Room 20 has become one of the most popular podcasts in the nation. Why do you think this story is resonating with such a large audience?
You know, honestly, it's surprising. It is surprising, and but it's very hopeful because it's a very nuanced story, and it's sad in so many ways, and yet people are finding something in it. They're connecting to this man, right? And I think if the point of the journey is to sort of find his humanity, I think in the telling of it and then the reaction to it, you know, it kind of does that.
Joanne Farian, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, if you're thinking about getting out and about around town this week, it's going to be hot. Meteorologist Justin Povic has our forecast.
Earlier today, we saw an area of mid-level moisture stream from south to north, this sparking off some showers and even a few lightning strikes. Now, back off to the east, still the potential for a lingering shower over the mountains this evening. Otherwise, the main weather feature will be a dip in the jet stream, onshore flow. That means coastal clouds and a slight cooling trend over some of the inland valleys and also mountains and deserts as we work our way through the upcoming weekend. For tonight, though, similar situation with that onshore flow, increasing clouds once again, visibility is coming down. Overnight low temperatures drop down into the upper 60s. And as we check out San Diego County, Ramona down to 62, Oceanside 65, Mount Laguna dropping down to 62. As we venture into Wednesday, again, seasonable here for most over the interior. Best chance for thunderstorms would be on off toward the east. There'll be some slow cooling into Wednesday. As again, we talk about the morning coastal low clouds, and these will spread into some of the western valleys at times into the morning. Otherwise, these will burn off, and we'll see some more sunshine as we venture into the afternoon. Of course, much more sunshine points east. Not quite as hot toward Borrego Springs at 107. Again, talking about numbers around 110 today. And notice to get around to San Diego and Oceanside, we're talking mid to upper 70s. As we venture into late week, once again, our weather will be dominated by a dip in the jet stream just off the coast that will continue to spread the onshore flow in with the marine layer. The coastal clouds will be a daily and common occurrence as we talk about even some of the western valleys seeing some of those morning coastal clouds at times. Let's give you the breakdown here at the coast, and temperatures will be uniformly into the upper 70s. Morning clouds, late day sunshine. That'll be the case right into Sunday. Let's take you further inland. Notice numbers here very similar, but even at times, I think there can be some patchy morning fog and low clouds. Desert locations, temperatures coming down slightly as we venture our way throughout the upcoming weekend. And notice over the mountainous terrain, we'll be talking about numbers down into the 70s by this weekend. For KPBS News, I'm Justin Pavic. Back over to you in the studio.
And the Oceanside International Film Festival kicks off tomorrow. Among the many films is the world premiere of Mrs. Henry Presents The Last Waltz. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has a preview.
Lou, you are returning to run the Oceanside Film Festival. So what are any particular challenges you've had this year?
Well, it's always a challenge putting together the events, getting together with the filmmakers, seeing who, once it's all been decided and the judges have chosen which films will be in the festival, coordinating with who could be there, what are some of the special events we can plan to kind of anchor the week of the festival.
Now, you are going to have a special program with Taylor Steele, and this is not just a screening of a film, so explain what people can expect from this.
Right, I'm really excited about this too. Taylor Steele is a real legend in surf filmmaking. He's award-winning, extremely influential in the genre. He started off his career filming a lot of his footage there in North County, and those films were kind of punky and had skits and costumes and weird themes to them. And then suddenly he evolved into this very international cinematic filmmaker and really influenced the genre of what we see today, kind of an out-of-focus wave in the background in Morocco or Iceland and things like that. And he came out with this amazing set of films. It's amazing to have him come, and he's going to hand-select clips from his 3 decades of filmmaking and talk different stories about, behind the scenes or tell something about a special clip. It's going to be really interesting.
Now, this is one of the things that I really enjoy about film festivals is it's not merely seeing a film, but it's this opportunity to interact with some of the filmmakers that are bringing their film. So are you having other filmmakers as well?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, on Wednesday night, we've got Animal Kingdom, and the star from Animal Kingdom, Sean Hatosy, is directing another episode, and he's bringing that.
I was in prison. I should have been there for you. I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. I've just got no one left to call.
Of course, Taylor Steele and Joanna Cassidy. So Joanna Cassidy, you'll have an opportunity to maybe ask some questions and learn some things about Hollywood back then and Hollywood today. And it's a small theater. It's really intimate. There'll be Q&As after a lot of the film blocks on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it gives you an opportunity to meet some of the people that acted in the films, maybe shot the films, edited them, directed them, and possibly wrote them.
And another one of the films that you have that's a documentary is all about Tony Alva.
Well, Tony Alva is a cultural icon. Sure, he's a famous skater from, if you're familiar with Dogtown or Vans shoes. Really brash. Not everybody likes him, but he's had a full ride up and down and back again. And he had a shop in Oceanside for about 3 years, lived in Oceanside, surfboards and skateboards. And Vans is presenting The Tony Alva story kind of chronicles his life. The film's only shown once before at the Newport Beach Film Festival, so we get to show it for the second time only publicly. The film's not going to be released until later in the winter.
In programming the festival, you have sidebars with animation, with short films. Do you kind of set up the programming based on the entries you get, or do you kind of seek out certain kinds of film to create that programming?
Yeah, a little bit of both. As the films come in, it's the hard job of Carly star Brulu Niles and the wonderful Sterling Anno to kind of formulate these blocks and find these blocks of films. And I think it's a really fun way to see a film festival too. You buy one ticket, you can go for the animation block, maybe you're even targeting one film, but you go for the whole block and you see some other animation or documentaries or romantic comedies that you want to see. So I think it's a really fun way. So far it's working, and we try to find special things, you know, whether it be the Marconi Youth or Animal Kingdom, which is TV, not film, but it's shot, a lot of it's shot in Oceanside, so that's the tie-in there. We try and find these special events to kind of anchor it, make it exciting, and bring people in to experience something new and see some films that maybe they wouldn't go target normally.
That was Beth Accomando speaking with Lou Niles. The Oceanside International Film Festival runs through Sunday at the Sunshine Brooks Theater. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.